that's sort of what's kept us going together.
And just know you're both on the same side.
Yeah.
You know, you're not fighting. You're fighting with each other, not against each other.
Mm.
All around the country, Australians sign up and put their lives on the line to do their part to protect the nation and its interests. But when the day comes to hang up their uniform for the last time, it's the end of one chapter and the beginning of the next. In this series, we talk to some of our veterans about their life after service.
Gary Wilson is an Army veteran of Timor and Afghanistan. He was attached to the 2nd Commando Regiment when, in June 2010, he narrowly survived a catastrophic helicopter crash in Afghanistan. He suffered a traumatic brain injury and woke from a coma months later. In Season 4 of Life on the Line podcast, Thomas Kaye spoke to Gary and his wife, Renee Wilson, in separate episodes about Gary's military career, their life together, and the crash that changed everything. Thomas caught up with the pair in their home in Canberra. He first spoke with Gary, with Renee sitting close by.
So for life after service, we're talking about careers after their time in the military is finished up. Yours was completely flipped on its head after the accident. Would you be able to tell us how things changed for you and what you've done to get to where you are today?
No. When I woke up from the, in the hospital bed, I thought I was captured. I was like, this isn't right. Then I realised that I can't walk, couldn't talk back then. So my career's over. What am I going to do with am I going to have a life or career after this? And then having Renee give me a good kick in the arse and help get me going again. Then finding through exercise and sport and good diet, as we've learned, how good home cooked meals and stuff, how better health you can have. Then moving into the coaching and the PT space.
And how do you say, what are those key moments of when you sort of left? So when you went to try and study to going into personal training to where you are now and where you want to go?
Well, I had to go through all neuropsych tests and stuff just so that I could go and study like university, and I passed the test to go to university, but then trying to actually be on studies wise and like having the distractions of other classmates, and so it was just too hard for me to focus on studying and then retaining the information. It was just, okay, maybe university isn't for me, it's not for everyone. Then back into TAFE software, which is more hands-on learning, which is more for my style of learning, but it's more hands-on and learning as you go. And then move into the PT space, and this is where I want to be. So I can work out really well here.
What was it like changing a career that you've spent so long learning and adapting and sort of growing, and then going, okay, I'm going to become a personal trainer now?
It's one of those things that's hard for me to let go of. Even now, I'm slowly learning the process, like that I'm no longer a soldier, so this is my new career path, and to identify myself as being a PT rather than being a soldier, because a lot of guys I know, the first thing they say is I was a soldier, so it's part of becoming your new you. So.
Have you found that a lot of the old, when I say the old you, I mean the old you that was when you were in the army, to the new you being you as a personal trainer, do you find that there's a bit of a mashup? Things that come across from your army training and so on that you've actually integrated into your life now?
Not that I can really think of. I may do that, but I don't actually I can't really think of it as actually part of my past and what it is now, so I'm sure Renee could tell you otherwise.
Where did that sort of idea of the whole, you're telling people how to do their training routines and exercises and so on, where did that come from? Did that come from the PTs hammering you when you were training, or?
A little bit, but yeah, I just think like, shit.
Yes.
So yeah, so
You love routine, you like structure. There's a lot of
so as Renee says, like there's a lot of synergies that like structure and routines and being able to tell people what to, not tell them what to do, but helping them to learn they're doing things incorrectly, like spelling even. I'm quite a stickler for that.
So, have you found that any of the exercises and so on can help you with your journey to recovery?
Well, as when found out more we read, it's about how exercise is good for your brain health, and that's what I'm trying to actually help myself and other people to prevent neurological decline. So as they get older, so for me, which because I'm much more susceptible to having neurological conditions later in life. So exercise and diet, good diet, the basic foundations to prevent that from occurring is the key points.
Are you still currently studying?
I'm always studying, so I'm doing a course in nutrition at the moment about how they can help with brain health, and keep reading. All the books I read is basically on becoming more optimal as a human being. So,
and since doing the personal training, going into that journey, are you still having any relationship with the army or people that you previously deployed with, or like friends?
yeah, when we're in town, we try and catch up as much as we can, but most of it's all online, because especially with COVID, and just keeping contact through those kind of things, like through sending each other memes and jokes and catch up on how everyone's going. So,
How'd you find adapting after leaving? Because it's very much a family community being in it, and then once you left, it's almost a different lifestyle.
well, it's because like you leave and your family's gone, but they're not gone. They're still there. Just you don't have to go and see them every day, and still keep in contact with them through like social media and that kind of stuff. So.
In the podcast, Thomas and Gary spoke about Gary's brief stint as a professional actor in the play The Long Way Home, with Gary playing an injured veteran. They spoke about it more for life after service.
I was just thinking, like with the play stuff, like yeah, because one of the last shows we did in Perth, our assistant director had to make sure I was wearing pants, because my final scenes I walk forward, I'm wearing a hospital gown. I may have done a couple of shows with no pants on, and the guys had like the rest of the cast had remained like very like still like they're at attention, and they with a few giggles of seeing my ass crack because so Suzanne had to make sure I was wearing pants.
You're dedicated to the role.
So well, it was one of the last shows they filmed, so I had that. So that show they filmed, I'm not wearing pants. So that was a funny little thing I could add to that.
Earlier you said you're very much a method actor, so I guess that's one of those.
Although I wasn't wearing pants when I was in hospital, so, and one of the first things I did when I woke up was check my junk and make sure I still had it. So apparently that's one of the first things people do with injuries. Even guys wouldn't do that, check to make sure they have that part.
That first, and then the limbs after.
That's the key priority, the focal point.
Well, I guess it's a bit of a surprise. You don't know what's happened, and then wake up and then.
That's over Renee in Germany. Her mum will fly to Germany, so I'm fully out to it in a bed. Renee's lifted the cheek, make sure I was still intact, and mum caught her.
At that point, you hadn't started remembering anything, so well at least.
I had complete blackout for 3 months thereabouts.
Well, at least she was looking out for you then.
Yeah, she had the best interest at heart. Hey, no.
Stop looking at me.
Would you ever get back into doing the acting?
Nah.
You did your time.
It was fun, but it wasn't for me. It's because when I first put my name forward for helping with the car, I thought it was I put my name forward to say help with script writing, help with cast and crew, like that kind of stuff behind the scenes. And they go, "Come on, Gary, you're up on that." I'm like, "No, I'll be right there. Come on, you've been written into this." I'm like, "Okay, fine, I'll give it a crack." And I had stage fright once. I thought that was on opening night in Sydney. Like, there's 900 people there, as I was behind to move on the first scenes, like the shields for the scene, I'm like, fuck, there's 900 people here to judge us. And the guy on the other side of the screen goes like, yeah, we've done enough in rehearsal, so just do the rehearsal. Just, like in the army, just you learn the routine, you just learn the drills, just go through the drills. Nothing else can distract you, so yeah. It's a very weird experience.
But it was a good thing that you did, and an incredible experience as well.
And like this with Life on the Line, it's very cathartic to be able to tell your story in there and the way that we've made a very theatrical version of it. So it was good for all involved to get it off their chest. So it's good.
Well, getting into that point, how you said about it's about sharing the story, telling it, and it can help and help different people different ways as well. How have you found that sort of reflecting on it, your accident?
Like the more I share it, the more comfortable I am to actually tell certain parts about it. Was my biggest catch point for me is telling about how what happened to me affected Renee. That's my biggest. It's about I'm okay talking about what happened because shit, I was given a 4% chance of survival, and here I am now being a PT, so which is pretty cool. But yeah, how it affected her, and then how I'm getting better at telling that part of the story. So
Is she pulling it all together?
yeah.
You were also, since leaving, an ambassador for Soldier On.
Yep.
What can you tell us about that?
So it's good to be involved with them to help support other veterans in our community and help them on their road up to life after service.
And how have you found on overall that sort of adaptation of when people leave to their basically adapting to their life after service?
Well, there are quite a few people who haven't come to grips with the fact that their service life has ended. Whereas like a lot of guys like me, we didn't want to get wounded and get kicked out essentially. So then those people didn't have the right mindset to start to leave the defence, whereas other friends that have left the service on their own choice have made great careers out of after the service. So it's all about mindset and having the right mindset, preparing yourself to leave and let go of back in the old days and back in my day and that kind of stuff. So
And it's not just ambassador for Soldier On and the personal training you're doing, but you've also competed in the Invictus Games.
yeah. But one of the other cast members from the play, he just went to the London Games. He said, give Ryan a crack because I can't run. So Ryan's a good sport and he won gold, so give that a crack. And Ryan became my sport of choice, and then did some seated discus and seated shot put. Went to the Orlando Games in 2016 and the Toronto Games in 2017. So, and got bronze in the seated discus.
Good effort.
After my heat for the discus, I was like, okay. And they said, okay, Gary, hang around. And normally in the army, if someone says hang around after this, you're in the shit. You're about to get beast of it. I'm like, what did I do wrong? And they said, you want bronze? I was like, no. And apparently they would go back and the athletics coach goes to the rest of the cricketers, Gary won bronze. And they're like, everyone was blown away that I actually won a medal. They're like, really? It's like, so the photo of me like with my medal, like completely still gobsmacked. So when someone says hang around, you go, what have I done wrong? But no.
Would you compete again?
No. Because like Prince Harry said in Toronto, the Invictus Games is part of your move forward. Like it's not the end goal, it's the end goal is further on past the game. So just keep pushing forward, and I've been my 5 minutes of fame, and now I don't need to do it again. It was an awesome journey, good experience. So, but now some of the other veterans who haven't competed yet to have their chance to see how much sport can heal.
Do you feel it's the Invictus Games is a good thing for helping veterans afterwards?
It's veterans and their families, because the families can come and support them and see it. I meet other families and see that their veteran is like, it's like a pet, like their veteran is affected like other families, and how other families are supporting it and then become we're all one massive community and you don't realise it, so it's a good experience.
In looking back on everything so far, what would you say is the most incremental moment that sort of changed everything for your life after service?
Well, I'd say there's a couple of key points for me. One, even when I was in hospital, I was in a pretty bad way. I was like, shit, my career's over, my life's over. I can't walk out because I was still non-weight bearing in bed. I couldn't move, couldn't get up. And I asked Renee, I said, why are you still here? I thought she would like just go and put me in a too hard basket and left. And she says, I love you, I'm staying. I'm like, okay, well, she fought for me to get to here, so I'm gonna keep fighting, get better and that stuff. So one of the first things I said when I learned how to speak again after waking up from the coma was, I love you and I still want to marry you. And so that got me some points. That, and then the other one was when I got my motorbike license and get back in, because before the crash, if I was in a bad mood, I'd go for a ride. It was my way, it was my meditation, mindfulness, just focusing on the task at hand. And I missed that. I want to get back on the bikes, and for years I was like, I totally for the Suzuki logo and stuff, because I was all about getting Suzukis. After the crash and trying to ride back onto another Suzuki, my knee was in pain, I couldn't change gears properly. So I had to go and buy a Harley. I was bagging Harleys for years and I had to go and buy one, so everyone has ridiculed me endlessly for being a turncoat. But that's good fun.
You're happy you made that choice though, going with a Harley?
It's good fun, and I'm now connecting with the Veteran Motorcycle Club, and they'll have all kinds of bikes, but Harley's kind of like the bike du jour.
Yeah. I guess it's kind of like it's a big change going from a Suzuki to a Harley.
I like the V-twin noise, I like a lot of torque. I'm like, okay, well, and the Suzuki bike, their big bike was too heavy for me, so I found a smaller Harley, and then this is fun.
How long did it take to win you over?
When I took it for a test ride, I was like, give it a go, and I chose the bike, so it had the mid pegs. I'm like, yeah, give it a go. And first open up, like just as a pullback at the torque, I'm like, oh, this is good. It's nice and loud, so I like loud bikes.
How do your neighbours feel about it?
Don't care. They say like loud pipes save lives, so.
That's true, they can hear you coming.
Yeah.
So when looking back, you'd say that basically waking up and having Renee there still, and saying, do you want to get married still? And the getting the motorbike, that's your two sort of key moments. And
other things like the kids and birth of the kids, and you're like, oh shit, like I have a lot more to focus on now. And for them, having them for years before Renee was pregnant, was like when we have kids, they're gonna have to be born wearing helmets because they're gonna be insane, they're gonna be nuts. And sure enough, they are. Which is one of my motivation points is that I have to learn how to run, because our kids are gonna be like just big runners and just fast. You have to try and catch them at all stages, and sure enough, they're insanely fast and into everything. So I have to be on top of it and catch up with them. So yeah, having the kids to be incentivise me to be able to get back into running and back as fit as I can to try and keep up with them.
Well, in the podcast, it was said that you always wanted to be a stay-at-home dad.
Well, I did joke. I was that'd be easy. It's not easy at all. It's hard work, but at the same time, like it's fun. It just drives you insane.
You wouldn't change a thing?
Not really, no. It could make it listen more. But I couldn't change it.
It's all part of the journey.
Yeah, it is.
Thomas then spoke with Renee and her journey.
One part that has been very much part of the recovery journey is your relationship with your mother-in-law. Mm-hmm. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Thank God we get along. I think it was the accident very much brought us together. We were a pillar of support for each other. all the way through Gary's recovery, and pretty much just acted like a bit of a team when it came to supporting him in the rehab hospital, and when I had to go back to work, she was there, and so we always had one of us with him. And then, subsequent to that, she was there with us when we transitioned him back to home, and has been there through all the key points ever since. So, we get along very well. I love having her around. She definitely takes the pressure off the household when she's around, because it's just helpful to have sort of someone else who can do, and it's just an accumulation of little things every now and then. But very fortunate to have her. And I think also lucky that I think I welcome it, because I imagine for some people, and for some women in particular, having your mother-in-law around can be quite intimidating. For me, it's been exceptionally helpful. So I think bringing that sort of mindset to it has really helped.
Do you think that having the fact that you had Gary's mum there with you for the recovery journey and from then on, helped cope with what was going on, as opposed to people who may not have a second person with them?
Absolutely. We very much relied on each other in the early days. There was only one point where we both got upset at once, and I think that made us even more upset, because it was like if one of us was upset, the other one could bring us back up and made us feel like there was still some hope. But one day in particular, we both just hit this low point together, and it almost felt like there was, well, if we've both lost it, there's nothing left. But I think experiencing that and sort of walking that journey together definitely brought us closer. We only knew each other for probably maybe about 12 months prior to that, and it was kind of just the visits, so you only knew each other on a very surface level, and we saw sides of each other that I probably even haven't shown to my own parents, and I saw vulnerabilities in her that I know she's never shown anyone since, and I still see that now. So it's interesting, I can see straight through her big, strong, tough exterior, but I'm not sure many other people do. And it's really helped, because with that we've been able to sort of bond, and we know what each other's talking about. I've been able to share vulnerabilities with her that I've not with other people, and just be very upfront and straight with each other, which I think is good.
Mindset seems to be a big part of what the two of you put in place together for the whole, once the service finished. Would you say that is going to be something that you're going to put on with your kids and everything going forward?
It's definitely harder with kids, because they don't have adult brains. I think with adults you can sort of talk a lot of logic, and they can kind of understand it, and then it'll pique their interest, and certainly this is how it works with me. I'll go and learn more, and then when I've learnt enough to satisfy my understanding, I'll go, okay, and I'll, start to change my mindset or shift how I think about things or try new things. But with kids, not having that and not having the ability to understand sort of the logic, it's very different. You're dealing with pure emotion, and I'm not sure I know exactly how to deal with that yet.
Would you say that mindset makes all the difference, or can make that difference when it comes to a recovery or adapting to a different scenario that you may not have expected? Yes.
It's complicated though, because it can be very much, you can have that sort of base mindset there, but if you become mentally ill, it becomes hidden and harder to access. And you need to find the right tool to trigger it, which will then enable you to sort of go on the journey to sort of find that strength that you have within yourself, to pull you out. So mental illness really complicates it, but you still have a choice about how you're going to deal with what's happening. And there's a lot of exploratory work that we all need to do as individuals in order to sort of understand how that works and how best we can access that. But if you don't make a choice, you can basically, and now I'm going to sound like a TED speaker, you can choose to be a victim or a victor, but you do. So when the accident happened, I could choose to wallow in my grief and give up and walk away, and let go of the relationship that I thought I had lost, or I could choose to stay and fight for it, which is what I did. And, you know, when Gary left and left the army, and he was sort of struggling to let go a bit, because the army has very much been his identity since he was 17. He could choose to keep that, or he could turn himself into something else. And so my job in helping him along that was just to help him identify where his interests were and to help pique the curiosity in him to explore that, so that he could let go of the other identity that he had.
Did you still have that family community environment once you left? That where you, in the podcast, initially said that you had that feeling and knew that you'd never walk alone again.
Yeah.
Was that continued?
Yes, it's definitely still there. However, it's kind of like when you grow up and you leave home. So your family's not always there. It's not as easy to access. The onus is on you to go out and, you know, pick up the phone and call them, or to go and visit, or if you're in location, tell them where you are. So it's pretty much a bit like that. It's like you're grown-up children and you've now left the nest for the second time, just a different nest. And now it's very much on you to create those bonds and to continue those bonds. But I know that should anything happen to Gary, should anything happen to us, should I need any support from any of the guys that I now class as my brothers, I could just pick up the phone and say, I'm not okay, things are not okay, and they would be here. So yeah, those bonds never go anywhere.
With the change in career from going from a clear set, knowing exactly where Gary wants to go, and then having that army lifestyle, and then going, okay, everything's going to change. That life afterwards, and the careers and building out afterwards, how would you summarise all of that?
It's a big change and it's scary. So for me, when I met Gary, I was, you know, I mean, I'd always had my own career hopes and desires, but I always felt secure knowing he was in the army, and we would always, you know, have a home, and we wouldn't have to battle. I wouldn't have to go through the financial pressures that my parents had to go through, because they both had sort of, you know, I guess the run-of-the-mill middle-class jobs. But we wouldn't have to battle, and we would always have money, we would always have security. So when all of that kind of seems to be taken away, it does, like I mentioned before, it feels like you're on your own again. And it definitely felt like it put a lot more pressure on me. And I needed to just keep pushing forward with my career, because I would now need to supplement the money and the security that we were getting from the army, in terms of my professional career and my job security. So I feel that pressure, and I know Gary jokes about being a stay-at-home dad and how difficult that is, but I also have the sympathy for the dads that go out there and work and are, you know, the ones that feel the pressure and responsibility to keep their families secure.
You're also keeping yourself busy, because you've got your professional career, but then you've also just picked up something new, which you're doing in your own time as well. Could you tell us about War Widows?
So War Widows is my current professional job, which is good, thank God. So I spent, since I left uni, I spent 14 years working in government, trained as a lawyer, but discovered halfway through I didn't want to be a lawyer, because you couldn't actually help people. Well, I didn't think you could anyway. So when I'd moved to Sydney with Gary, I was able to spend some time practicing a particular type of law where I was having a positive impact on people's lives, and helping them manage loss of loved ones. So that was exceptionally rewarding, and when I couldn't stay in that, I had no interest in staying in that. Fortunately, I was able to move back into the federal government and into sort of more policy work, which is where what I really liked doing. And because we had just experienced a whole bunch of gaps in the veteran support system that existed at the time, I was brought in to help Veterans Affairs transform their organisation into a more responsive and agile organisation, and one that catered for the needs of their contemporary cohort. And that again was exceptionally rewarding. It was challenging, but it was rewarding. But it was back in the federal government, it was my bread and butter, and it was a subject that I knew a lot about. And so I stuck with that for quite a while, and only about 2 years ago now decided that I needed to step away for a bit. So I moved, didn't really change portfolios, just moved to another department in the same portfolio, and basically just did a job that I didn't need to think about, and made myself underemployed, if that makes sense, and then realised all the challenges that come along with that. So it's a very long way of saying I was picked up to do a job outside of the government. This is my first time outside, and to do a job which is very similar to what I did in DVA, which is to bring Australian war widows into their new generation, and to transform that organisation into one that represents and supports all families and women that have been impacted by Defence Service, which is a cause that's very close to my heart.
Would you be able to tell us more about sort of the old to the new, and how you're going to see that change and how it's going to actually change lives?
For me, there is a significant gap in the current veteran support system, which is families. And I mean families in a very general sense, but in particular I mean civilian families. So if I had worn a uniform, there are a plethora of supports out there for me. Now, the issue isn't the number of supports, the issue is accessibility. So there's an issue of how I can access what's out there for me, but nonetheless, there is a safety net out there to capture me. As a civilian, that safety net is not as coherent, it's not as robust, yet I still manage the impacts of military service every day. So for me, and there has been this need for a very long time. I noticed it pretty much day one after Gary's accident. There, was a number of systems that were already in place to wrap around the widows, which is great, and as it should have been. But for a couple of people in the regiment at the time, I effectively would have walked that journey on my own. But for the bonds that we had already created with others, I would have been sort of almost isolated, being the civilian in the group that wasn't a widow, and even worse for someone like Gary's mum, who wasn't the widow, isn't the fiancé, isn't the wife. So there's just, for me, and it's become glaringly obvious, particularly after events like Invictus. Invictus was the first one that I had seen that really respected and honoured the role of families, particularly post-injury, and the families of those that are managing and supporting people with mental injuries themselves. So it just, the more and more I've realised how isolated we all are, I really want to build that community. I really want people to recognise that they're part of that community and that they're not alone, that there is a significant network of women and families that are out there that have all walked a similar journey. One of the very lovely war widows put it so nicely the other day when I was telling her about my experience, and the first thing she said to me was, she's like, we have this bond that transcends, any form of generational gap or geographical gap, and that's what we're connecting on. And I think she's exactly right. And for me, that's out there, and if we can help to fill that need in the community, I think we're going to equip the families much better to look after themselves. And then if they can look after themselves, hopefully we can have a positive impact on potential intergenerational trauma, and then have a positive impact on the veterans themselves and their long-term health and well-being.
It sounds like quite a task.
Yeah, it's no pressure, no pressure.
How long do you think it will take to put something like that in place?
Well, I don't know. I've never done this before. And I guess that's sort of the ultimate vision and goal. I think it will be difficult because there hasn't been such a broad network or a broad community before. So I think part of the challenge will be getting people to identify as being part of that, and getting people to realise that perhaps they need it. So it'll be a challenge. I think we're already starting to move towards that direction now. Hopefully we'll have some significant progress in the next 12 months, but it's a long-term journey. I hope that I can look back in 10 or 20 years' time and go, wow, look at that, that's amazing.
What do you think, talking life after service, one of the main things that sort of helps people, or could be that turning factor, is in changing someone's life from going from a career in the military to a career as a civilian?
I actually have a hypothesis around this, and if I had some time, I would do the research to prove that I'm right. I honestly think someone's ability to transition well all comes back to their concept of self and identity, and how much when they enter the Defence Forces they identify or need that the identity that the military gives them. Versus someone who enters very much knowing who they are, very much understanding what they think their purpose is and where they want to be, and the military is a stepping stone. So we talked about mindset earlier. I think it all rolls back to the mindset that you're entering with. If you're entering kind of not really knowing what you want to do, but wanting and needing and yearning for the structure that it provides, the military will give you an identity. For me, those people it's much harder for them to transition, it's much harder for them to let go, because without that identity, there's almost like there's no meaning, there's no purpose. It's the job is what they've become. And it takes a lot of commitment and a lot of introspection to be able to realise that that's not who you are. That was a flash in the pan, that was a career, and you actually need to work to identify sort of what now and what is your identity and who are you and why are we all here, and all those big esoteric questions that we don't have time to answer. My hypothesis is if we can do more work around personal development for those people as they're leaving, who should be fairly easy to identify on the way in, we can make a lot of impacts, positive impacts, and allow them to transition more effectively and more quickly. I also suspect that you will find that it is the non-commissioned officers or the diggers or whatever they're called in the other services that also struggle to let go, because for them it's a very different journey through the military as opposed to the officers who have a very professional career. They learn different skill sets. The officers go through leadership training, personal development training, whereas the non-commissioned officers don't do that. So I think there is a distinction, and there will be different paths, but I think if we can intervene with more of that at the back end, knowing how people are coming in, people will do a lot better.
So is that what's going to be next for you after you've flipped War Widows?
Oh, look, I don't know. I would hope that the research would be done by then, and we would be able to sort of do that. But look, in short, I don't think so. I think my space is with the families and my space is with the women, because obviously I am one. I can't begin to imagine what it is like to walk in the shoes of a veteran, and to walk into the army, not knowing who you are, and walk out not wanting to let go of that. And I think it needs somebody with that lived experience to take that, and there's thousands of them out there, so I'm sure one of them will take up the challenge.
So they hear your message.
Yeah, that's right. Might even be the guy standing behind me who might do it.
Thomas then finally spoke with Gary and Renee in a joint interview.
Well, together with Life After Service, how have you found that transition for thinking about each other, from going from the whole recovery journey to where you are today to where you will be in 5-10 years' time?
Everyone's looking at me. I guess I'll start
No,
then.
you start.
Okay, good.
And I'll correct you.
That it is just that. It's a journey. And it's probably impossible to plan too far ahead. I love planning. I'm a bit of a perfectionist and have OCD tendencies. So it's...
It's great fun.
But I've also learnt that I can't plan too far ahead because the only constant is change. So I think it's just following the curiosity and seeing where we go. You know, even in taking this job, it's technically only a 12-month job. I'm not sure what'll come next. I hope I'll keep it for more than 12 months. But yeah, it's for me, the big learning has been learning to roll with it more than anything else.
Yeah, improvise.
Improvise.
Yep. It's about improvising.
I think for you, it's been a lot about role switching.
And being a stay-at-home dad.
And study.
Trying to study, because I hated school. I absolutely hated it. I joined the army to have to study. Yeah, then all this stuff now I have to do study and learning.
Self-directed study at that.
It's bloody hard.
If you had to give advice to another couple that was in the same shoes as you, what would be one or two things that you'd tell them?
Empathy.
Work together.
Yeah, really just there's a hack. I think it's some form of life hack where if you're about to yell at somebody, you just stop and you count to 10 or 7 or whatever. And it's in that split second. That's enough just to sort of stem the flow of emotion that's happening, so you can see a bit more clearly. I'm learning more, but the more I stop myself, particularly when he's doing something that's just irritating me, if I can intervene and I stop myself and have that empathy and go, okay, not only is he used to routine, and now there's almost none. And not only that, but he has a brain injury. So, you know, I do have to repeat myself and I hate it, but I have to do it. Or I have to nag, or, you know, when I can have that empathy for him and understand where he's at, that's helpful. And then for him, he's been a bit like that with me, particularly when I was quite mentally unwell. Having the empathy that half of what he was telling me, I couldn't actually understand. That's sort of what's kept us going together.
And just know you're both on the same side.
Yeah.
You know, you're not fighting. You're fighting with each other, not against each other.
When you met, you both had a difference of opinions on a few things, Gold Coast being one of them. Have either of you changed your mind on the Gold Coast now?
No, we're both just as stubborn. We both hold our own views and we both continue to hold them very strongly. But I think it's... you also reach the point, well, I've certainly reached the point where I'm like, I just need to disengage. The more I engage, the more it fuels the fire. So we just let it go.
Nice champ.
And we champ each other a lot.
The other thing that I wanted to bring up was the wedding day. So there's March, April, and then following on from October 2010.
2/4/11.
Got it right now.
Yeah. I just remember that I could confuse it with the month and the number.
I'm sure.
So it's your excuse for those other times.
I don't know. The fact that I was reorganising the wedding and had multiple dates, but whatever.
Whatever.
So what day is it?
Today.
No.
Saturday.
What day did we get married?
The 2nd.
Of?
April.
Yeah.
What year?
2011.
Okay.
High fives.
Done.
From everything that's happened, what are some things that you think would be there's room to be learned from for going forward? So with your role in War Widows, there's quite a bit there, but maybe together, what are some different aspects that you think could save relationships, lives down the track? What would be some notable points?
For me, I think the support that Gary has provided me when I was so unwell with depression and anxiety has been what's kept us together. I watched As a child, I watched my parents' relationship fall apart because my dad didn't know how to support my mum and my mum didn't know what was happening to her. But for Gary, it rolls back to the empathy again, but he really took the time to learn about what was happening to me because I didn't have the capacity to understand it. And he took the time to understand it, and no matter how many times I said to him, maybe we should just call it quits, it was never an okay, fine. It was always no. Or he'd just let me have my vent and know that at the end it would all calm down. But I think that it provides an easy option because you just get into this spiral where you don't understand what you're saying, you can't understand what people are telling you, you can only understand how it's feeling and you just want it to stop. And him taking the time to understand about the conditions and what was happening and to be there to help me engage in the right treatments when I needed it has been what's protected us, I think.
Yeah, just basically just being there. You don't have to say anything because I was saying a lot, trying to talk and trying to fix things as I do. But you don't have to just be there. When they do calm down, you're there, and like I said before, you're on the same team, so keep supporting each other.
And we don't want to have to use Tinder again, or Tinder ever. We've never used
Tinder.
Never used Tinder again. Where did that come from?
Yeah, so we got to stay tuned. What the hell?
Oh dear, no.
So roles have effectively switched from when you were in the army and to now you're effectively stay-at-home dad as well as a personal trainer. So how would you say that's changed things, the dynamic between the two of you as well?
Yeah, I think we've definitely switched around. When Gary was in the army, it was all, his career was first and was primary and mine was secondary. That's obviously switched around now, but to, being that primary support network for him or primary support pillar for him as he sort of recovered and got better again, that switched.
And it's for you to let go of my recovery.
Yeah.
And let me actually support you rather than vice versa.
Yeah, that's really hard. You don't really know, you don't learn how to be a carer in the first place, but you kind of just go with your instincts and you just jump in boots and all and do all of that stuff. But then you need to figure out how to undo all of that and how to pull back. And I still very much struggle with that. It's,
allowing me to be independent and do things by myself. And we're getting there.
A lack of control makes me really scared because the last time I had no control over what was happening, he almost died. So it's, still dealing with that.
You've also kept yourselves busy by setting up the Wilson initiative. What can you tell us about that?
Well, that's a relatively, well, I guess the concept's always kind of been there. Ever since we started to get out more and sort of tell our stories, we're keen to do that because we want people to see that just because something shit happens, it doesn't mean that that's your whole life. You can come out the other side.
And it doesn't define you.
Yeah.
Your injuries, whatever you've been through, whatever happened to you, isn't who you are as a person. Like a career, there's a part of your life that's helped you get to where you are currently. Yeah.
So we want people to hopefully see the light at the end of their tunnel. So once COVID goes away a bit, we'll probably hopefully get back out there a bit more and do some of that. But what we're doing at the moment is a sort of a side project which sits under that banner, which is basically making face masks, selling them, and the profits of the face masks are being pooled and they'll be donated towards the Invictus Family and Friends program once Invictus gets going again in Australia. And my focus there is again rolling back to community and wanting to have some form of activity that money can fund, which will build social cohesiveness in that group, so that when the games end, because it is such a great experience and you are on this massive high, they know that there's a support network for them. So the athletes get to build that all the way through as they go through the journey of getting ready for competition and competing and post, and they still have their network, but the families are only brought together for one event and a flash in the pan. So it's being able to have an activity that will bring them together and will break down the barriers is what I'm really trying to do with the money that's being pulled from that. And unfortunately, I'm making all the masks on my own because he can't cut material.
No, I can't, sorry. Yeah. It's safer, I'm helping everyone by not touching him.
Yeah.
Could be a good skill down the track.
Maybe. Later,
after you've learned how to play guitar.
Yeah.
Looking over everything, what is one thing that if you could change something in your after service time, what would it be?
I think. Because if you change it, would you change where you are currently? So.
Yeah, that's right. So I'm not sure that I would actually change anything. If I could have a little bit of a do-over, it would have probably been to just be present a lot more when the kids were babies. I think that's the thing for a lot of women, when you kind of realise that you're not going to have any more kids, and that period is just so difficult it really does go by in the blink of an eye. So to just have been more present and to have better and longer lasting memories, because I was there with them while they were babies and playing with them and spending time with them and not trying to do everything else, is probably if I could have a second chance, I'd do better at that, I think.
Well, thank you for today. I think it is time to put your personal training skills to the test. Yeah, right. And give us a run for our money.
You ready for it? You coming too?
Oh, I'll just smash it.
No, it's rhetorical. You're coming too. Come on.
It's fine. Beat you any day, Wilson.
Big call. Big call.
After their chat, Gary put Thomas and another Thistle Productions crew member, Rohan Viswalingam, through their paces.
We'll be doing overhead press, bend over row, ball stands or sit-ups. Once you complete the 20 calories, then swap. Pressing up overhead. Yep. And don't like an easy overhead. 20% to the hips and 10% arms. Push, long push. Okay, head down, Rick. Head down. Good. Ball stands, choose your poison. Up, high, release. And like trying to put it to the side, pole drive through the ground. The whole core, basically core, good, good, good. Push your legs. Head down, good. Great. Pitch up, full core. Like trying to drive it through the ground. Good. Here you go. Good work. And the exercise is exertion. So push it. Push. So 61, trying to get to 81. Good. Good one. At the vertical position, so it's full body rock, so 70% legs, 20% hips, 10% through the arms, so more power through your legs, but when you get to the end, rock back a little bit so you get more length out of the chain. Push, lean back in there, so almost straight. Now we go, Michelle. How long you want to? Let's go. See, you gotta keep push. Keep breathing. Push, stay. Lean back in more. Lean back, lean back.
I'll keep doing that, don't worry.
Keep your neck nice and straight.
When the shots crack around you, you remember the high. But it wasn't excitement, it was just terrifying. The steel tore through clothing, mud walls, trees and flesh, as I emptied my mag towards nothing at best. And as I crawled forward and I looked through me sights, I turned and saw Rowdy give a wink and a smile. He shouted with me as he sprung to his feet with his gun up and firing out into the green and the dirt all around him like rain on a pond as he made his way into the hell just beyond. Well, I've tried to forget